Hello, everybody. Welcome. I have to tell you, I'm very honored to be here and sorry, was waiting to get started. Um, for an opening, one of the things I was doing was practicing a new pledge that I've learned to say. I have often wished for an equitable, non-political way to express the following. And I just put it in the chat. I pledge allegiance to the earth of our beloved solar system and to her creatures, for here they dwell, one planet, united in harmony with love and compassion for all. Every person, every creature, the planet as its own being, as the solar system, is the future that we're working for. And I hope that all of us are coming to this panel to talk about what that future can look like. We would like to hear from you. Just one word. What makes you want to come to a panel where people intend to talk across culture and through food and through agriculture specifically? Cole, if I could have that first slide. Most certainly, we want to acknowledge the stolen land on which all the things that have happened in our world, it was purely stolen. And it was populated with and built by stolen bodies, right? And in many ways, maybe our future was stolen in that way. But what this panel is going to seek to do is bring people together to have a conversation about that. So those ancestors up top in the far left, those four women, they are that picture in part my motivation for doing what I do, particularly with children in and through schools. They were former slaves, and in that picture, all of them are more than 100 years old, and one of them is at least 125. And with that, I got to thinking, what is it about my people that we can go through that experience and look like that? And what I realized is eating organic food, working hard with your body, having essential connection with the other humans around you for your survival, and a spiritual connection with the land. And I think, at least speaking for my people and from an African-American, African point of view, we turned our backs on a lot of our greatness, and we left our greatness behind us and went running for the cities. I laugh. My mother believes she was nourishing me when she gave me Swanson TV dinners, because that's like the best you could give your kid, right? I'm old. So it's really important, I think, to go back to the land, back to the scene of the crimes. And you're going to hear that every single culture represented here has a hard story to tell about their relationship with the land. We got to go back and reclaim it and talk to each other while we're there, because we all have that experience. Could I have that next slide, please, Cole? So this picture is a picture of, quote unquote, the darkies picking cotton. And it hangs over the bed of a gentleman that I knew 30 years ago. He's a cotton farmer. He's a white guy. He farmed 5 square miles of cotton outside of Phoenix, Arizona. And his children, very privileged, but they were farm children, were my students at a boarding school. And here's what I will say about that. His son, who is now taking care of him because he is infirmed, is outraged by that photograph and that he has to see it every day. To watch what has unfolded in our country over this past year now has horrified him. And that horror of the generational attachments to his privilege minimally cause him to drink. And so again, I think if we all go back together like this panel intends to do, we can heal all of that pain and work together. I would ask everyone who's watching this now, settle in. There's some courageous people that are about to step forward and tell their personal stories and share what they've learned around culture and ethnicity on the land. So we would ask you to listen with an open mind, listen with an open heart, and let's see what we can do together. So first I need to introduce Josefina Chavez, who in many ways is my personal inspiration for this panel. I have never met her. I was part of a conference where she spoke, and she spoke her story of being an immigrant in Central California, or Central California, and Salinas. And she gave information from her perspective that continues to inform my work with the kids I'm working for today. I'm going to leave her to tell the rest of that story. But you ready, Josefina?
Not really, Wanda. I'm actually super
nervous.
nervous.
Got it, girl. You got it.
Thanks for inviting me. Thanks to everyone here. Super, oh my gosh, fortunate to be on this panel. Alfred, Wanda, Cole, Merritt, thank you for organizing. I think Angelica is her name. Thank you, Angelica. Everyone, thanks everyone for being here. I know it's tough. I know everyone is zoomed out. And I had overly prepared, and then I realized that I'm just gonna be true to who I am, and I'm just going to speak to my story. This is a photo of my father this past Sunday. We were taking down the mustard cover crop, and I guess I'll start with him. I come from a family. I'm a fourth generation farmer. All of my I was born in Mexico, of a family of 10. I have 10 siblings, and then my 2 parents. I was born in a place called Las Jicamas, Guanajuato, which is in rural Mexico. My family and I were relatively economically poor, and I know people feel uncomfortable with that, and people like to politicize poverty and say you were not really poor because you loved your family. I do love my family, and we had an amazing time, and there's a lot of love there. But economically and realistically, the peso plummeted 2 times, and it stripped my parents of everything they had. Because of NAFTA, they were unable to compete in the market to sell corn, which is a staple of Mexican culture in general. And so my dad immigrated first and worked here for 10 years. And then when he was able to bring us with him, then we immigrated with him, which is intense in itself, because for 10 years, my father chose to work in order for us to have a better life, which has influenced me in a very different way of how I understand what is success, and the pressure of that, of what that means to an immigrant and an immigrant child. So I grew up in here in the Salinas Valley in Soledad, California. Majority of the people that lived in Soledad are Mexican and Mexican American, 3% Black students. And so we were diverse in a way. The music was great, the food was great, I will say that, and we had a lot of great dance parties. What was always interesting about me, I think, is that I've always been intrigued by the different. And so I always had these 2 constant different perspectives of the world. One, it was my immigrant father and my immigrant mom telling me that work was at the core of where I wanted to go, and that was the most important thing: work ethic, respect, and self-dignity, and that I had to do everything to protect that. And that meant isolating myself from the rest of the community. But me, I love the rest of the community, right? Because Soledad is in the middle of the salad bowl in a way. Relatively speaking, everyone had their parents working out in the fields. They were all a farm labor. And so that's kind of the culture that we experienced. There was a lot of poverty, again, economic poverty, and there was a lot of gangs. And so what's interesting, I think, that I find that, like, as I reflect about my life, is that I learned a lot from that. And it was always very, very different, because on one end there was always the demonization of gang members, but I was very protective by them. And so it was always just like a very different world. And that world, the jock world, the punk rock girl, like I was always the girl at the rock show. Also, I was just into everything, right? Which was really hard, because also in our culture, we tend to try to protect women from different dangerous situations, what we perceive to be dangerous. And so anyway, long story short, I graduated high school. We thought that the way to go, no, I'll go back to my childhood. In the same mix, I used to always grow my own food. And so as a child, I would grow beans in the front yard, wherever we were at. I would just grow plants. That's just what I like to do. I graduated high school, not with the best grades, but my teachers did enjoy my sense of humor. I will say that. But the grades just weren't there. The grades just weren't there. So I had a difficulty getting into the university system. Still, I did what I could. I got into university. I wanted to steer myself away from anything ag related, just because I witnessed in the political sense, what it means to be on the other side of what you call a farm worker, and a Mexican always being perceived as farm labor and not as a knowledge holder. And my father, what I've seen from my father, even though he took great pride in where he came from and what he did and his sense of knowledge, it was all stripped away from him here, because there's no sense of autonomy or persona or humanity in how we perceive farm labor. The reverence is always in the farmer. And here, all we saw was conventional commercial ags. And so I wanted to steer myself away from that. And to an extent, my father did also, and so did my parents. But just both of them wanted me to be as successful as I could, right? And I struggled, because I was never the smartest kid in class. I just wasn't. I suck at math to this day. I was just not, I always enjoyed reading. I always enjoyed writing, but I was just never the best at it. And so either way, I went on to university. I started traveling. I realized that I just really enjoyed geography and just trying to understand different cultures, different people. I was constantly challenged, and I just really, really, really embraced that and enjoyed that difference. I wanted to, at some point, I wanted to become a foreign service officer. And so I thought that the way to succeed in this country is to indebt yourself to the point where, you know, you can't live sort of a normal life in order for you as an immigrant, coming as an immigrant, because I know I've gotten comments back before. It was like, I'm also an immigrant from Sweden. That's not the same thing. So just so you know, that's not the same thing. An immigrant from South America, Central America, Mexico, Central America, and South America, Africa, East Asia, different parts of India, they're different. And so I had to build myself up. And I thought that was the only way to do it. I got caught up in the pressure. I got a lot of student debt. And And I did. And to a sense, I became American successful. Superficially anyway, that's what people see. People see she's got a good job, you know, she's like pretty eloquent, she can understand some things, but like realistically, no, I'm in the shit. Like I have tons of student debt. I now, so anyways, I'll leave that behind. It's all superficial. It is my point. It is all superficial, and it's all this pressure that it creates. And so then I joined the Peace Corps, and I had a great time at the Peace Corps. I have my own political stance on what the Peace Corps is and what it's not, and I understand all of its critiques, and I agree with them. Either way, that was one for me as an immigrant person to be able to enjoy the rest of the world and have that experience without indebting myself more. And so I went to Indonesia. I spent time there, realized foreign service isn't where I wanted to be. I was doing this specifically just because of the prestige. I was doing it because of the prestige. I was doing it because I wanted to impress my parents. More than anything, I wanted my parents to be proud of me. Because as an immigrant kid, that's the most important thing to you. And it doesn't matter. People say here, all my friends that grew up here will say like, doesn't matter. No, it does matter. Your parents matter. They matter. Certain things matter in life. What your parents think of you matters. And so I realized that regardless of what that matters, I was going to have a conversation with my parents where I was going to let them know that things were going to shift. I didn't want to be a foreign service officer, especially under Donald Trump. And so I made that move, that career shift. And 4 years ago, it felt hard. You know, it felt hard. It's hard to like let go of something that you were building. I speak 3 languages fluently. You know, I have a master's degree. Like, yeah, like that's the next step. But that's not what I wanted to do. That's not what was gonna make me happy. So I came back to the United States. I started working as a farmer's market manager, making $15 an hour. I just hustled. I tried to do what I can. I live with my parents. And then I started working in an after school program, nothing related to farming, but I was doing both. Then one of my teachers at an incubator program recommended me this job. I applied at CAF. I was like, I'm not gonna get it. I have no experience in farming. Like I had all of these understandings of who they wanted, why they wanted them. They probably want like a white guy wearing like all Patagonia, you know, and just like mellowed out, and like they don't want this, you know. I'm like an intense person that doesn't really have a background in farming. But fortunately enough, like, yeah, I got the job. And through the job, I did an incubator course. I started farming just like with whatever I could. So I didn't have access to land, and definitely not access to capital, even though like I worked 2 jobs. And so what I just started doing is what I guess like as an immigrant, and I'm not going to speak on behalf of all immigrants, but I will say that this has been the pattern that I've seen. Immigrants see opportunity. That's what they see. And that's what I see. I see all the injustices. I do. And they very much like make me sad and depressed. But as an individual person, I think as an immigrant, you understand that you are responsible for yourself at the end of the day. And you have to look around and see what opportunities there are of you, because you look back and what you have in Mexico is not that. You don't have the opportunities you have here. And so you have to take advantage of them, especially like living in an immigrant household. Your parents will remind you constantly that you can't just sit around and do nothing. You have to move on with your life. You have to pick up speed. And so there I was. What I saw was a few farmers that were like, hey, I can't lease you land, but I can let you farm 2 rows. I can let you farm 3 rows. Yeah, they're like an hour and a half away from your house, but like, if you can do it, you can have it. And so I just started doing those things. I would just start growing at my house, just certain things. And then
so, Josefina,
yeah,
can we save some of that? Can I ask you sort of one concluding question, and then we'll go around the circle, right? Right. So our friends here in the audience, what I didn't do, but Josefina just did an excellent example of, is asking folks to tell their stories, right? About how working with ancestral lands helped heal, right? Help frame who you are and how you see the world and how you relate to your fellow person. I will tell you, she's right about those parties and that food. I was the 3% living down in Salinas for a year, and it's a remarkable experience where I really learned, just because you know somebody's Mexican don't tell you a whole lot about them, right?
Yeah.
And I think you just continued that. We're going to give people an opportunity to continue with those story exchanges when we break out into affinity groups.
Sounds good.
If you don't mind, but let me just ask you to sum up in a sort of big picture. How is this, the farming that you're doing now and the growing and the work you're doing with CAF, supporting healing your own and or the community?
Yeah, so my ranch name is Big Beaner Ranch, and that was intentional. And it is hilarious because for me, it's about reclaiming my identity, all parts of it, right? We've got the Vato Locos and we've got the immigrant Mexicans, and yeah, I embrace all of it. I embrace our lineage in Mexico and what was here in California and what is now California. And I wanted to title it. I wanted it a space for kids like me, like when I was a kid, to be able to see someone, a female, live it up and be authentic and be themselves and be comfortable in their own skin and be unashamed of being imperfect, you know, because we're so caught up in trying to be other people all the time. And I'm just so sick of that. And yes. I love who I am. I love where we're from. I don't care if I grew up poor. I don't care if like my parents aren't the fanciest people. Like my mom, look at my mom. My mom's like so down to earth. So is my dad. And like, that's what I want people to see. I want to see people be themselves wherever they're at, especially brown kids. Yeah. I want them to see something different. Yeah.
Amen. Thank you for that. And we're not letting Josefina go, because I'm getting texts on my phone about how great you are. I'm getting texts in the chat, like, do it. And we thank you. So next we're going to move to Leslie Weiser. And what I'm trying to do is let everybody introduce themselves in the context of telling their story. So Leslie, we're going to pass this to you. And if you would just talk about your experiences on the land through ethnicity.
Oh, Wanda, I think we're going to go to Alfred first.
Same thing. Oh, Alfred, please. We're going to you next. I've got the wrong order in my notes.
All right, sorry about the noise. I'm kind of near the street level, but greetings, everyone. Thank you all for participating in this panel discussion. My name is Alfred Melbourne, and I am a modern day warrior and an urban farmer. I grew up in West Sacramento, California, a community that has been plagued by some gang involvement and over criminalizing our youth in our neighborhoods, school to prison pipeline. Personally, I am system impacted. Just seeing kind of what was going on in our area, knowing that we had to create more opportunities for our youth. I took it upon myself to found and create Three Sisters Gardens. We're a 501c3 nonprofit organization, and we aim to inspire and empower potential youth in our community. So at present, we just hustled hard, created opportunities with some of the most unlikeliest of folks and turning them into farmers. You're seeing our first original field right now that's in cover crop right now, preparing for spring. where we started with this little tiny plot, cultivating the land, getting our hands dirty, a lot of sweat equity in there, and just really applying ourselves. When we started this field here in particularly, we had 7 beds, and got myself busy and other folks in the community coming out, and we just really started engaging, having conversations, having this safe space for our youngsters to come out and see how they can give back to the community. So with my experience, kind of for someone in our community, it wasn't really if you were going to go to prison, it was kind of when, and set up for failure from the beginning, and just knowing that there had to be something more. Seeing kind of a lot of defeated individuals in our community after going through such a traumatic experience, and fortunately coming out 18 years later with the idea to create something. So if you could show the next slide, please. So here we are. Our first farm is literally just right around the corner. And my whole idea is to grow food in the community, but grow food in a way where we get our youngsters excited. Straight lines have never been my thing. So as you guys can see here, we created a nice pattern out of the field with some designs in there to get our youngsters' hands in the field, get them involved, and let them see the creativity and what we can do and still grow plenty of food. So, but it's just been an awesome opportunity to mentor these youngsters, to teach them how to grow, harvest, and distribute these vegetables to food insecure homes. It's kind of given me an ability to elevate my voice, share my experiences, and let a lot of these youngsters that have similar backgrounds, of course, you know, me being a Hunkpapa Lakota, native indigenous to this land, showing them that we are a part of this land, our connection to it is sacred, and how we can further develop that connection by growing in it, by rebuilding the urban soil. So it's just been a kind of real big experience for me to be able to speak on several topics, to participate in panels like this, and share the knowledge and wisdom that is definitely deep inside of us. Some of us, you know, I mean, for a while, didn't even really know we have it there, you know, but tapping in, finding that in our DNA, that connection to the land. So it's really been just an awesome experience being able to share what I'm learning with these youth in our community. So we have a total of 4 farms. If you want to go to another slide. Speaking on some of the numbers. Yeah, so that's just a different view of our 5th and C Street site. Can you change it one more time, please? Another view, we can stay there for a second. Okay, so here we are, back here, we have just a close-up picture of what we're able to impart to these youth, letting them see, you know, what we can create with our hands, and the work that we put in on a daily basis. So at present, we do have 4 farms locally in our community. That's our River City farm, cover crop, garlic, lettuce, radish. And so really just letting our youth kind of fully experiment and learn to grow. But we give back from 40 up to 60% of our food to food insecure homes. Where we're from, we are designated a food desert. So there's not a lot out there. And what is out there, of course, is very expensive. So really just trying to give these youngsters every opportunity possible, using the skills that we have to connect with the land, sharing the native indigenous knowledge, and getting these youth engaged. So okay, and here's another field that we have. Of course, this one is also in cover crop that, you know, we just take care of our land. None of this land belongs to me. So we are definitely fortunate to be part of the Center for Land-Based Learning Incubator Farmer Program, where 2 of our sites, this one, Cummings Way Farm, is actually licensed through them. So our goals is to gain the experience, knowledge, and hopefully be able to get our own land within our own community so that we can continue to build out these beautiful landscapes, transforming these on the outside and thereby creating that change on the inside. So letting these kids see what we can create, what we can do. But again, in doing this work, connecting with the land, the most unlikeliest of folks, engaging in farming, this sacred act, connecting with the land and growing food, inspiring these youngsters that at other times you would see just hanging around on the corners, kind of getting mixed up in other things that young folks do. They're able to come out here on a daily basis and work with this, transform these landscapes, change their way of thinking, see themselves, in the tomorrows to come, because a lot of these youngsters, just kind of live day by day, but we want to show them that there's a connection to the community, a connection to the future, so that we can help uplift them. They can see themselves in the future and mold them as future leaders. We hope to get more space to show our model to other folks. And if I have it my way, we'll have 50 spaces like this within our community, building up a resilience that we don't have to rely on any outside inputs. Food sovereignty is definitely what's on my mind, teaching these youngsters how to grow and do things with their own hands. But for me, it's just been an amazing experience to elevate my voice. And I like to tell folks all the time that it's more than just lettuce. It's about connecting to the land, about connecting with our community leaders and stakeholders, and helping to elevate the voice of our youth and the importance of food sovereignty within our communities, so that we can do for ourselves instead of having all these other folks wanting to come in and do for us. And at the end of the day, they leave. So self-reliance, food sovereignty, native indigenous knowledge. So thank you guys for listening to me, and just hope you guys appreciate all the pictures that you guys see.
Wonderful, Alfred. You have a real quick story of a inner transformation, maybe a story where you were healed, or a statement about how you were personally healed, or one of your kids?
Well, I'll use myself, but it's been a major transformation for me. I mean, after spending 18 years behind the walls, coming home to a job that was very unsatisfying, of course, paying very little, I was able to apply myself in that first field and really just kind of wear myself out, really put my heart and soul into it. And it's kind of led me on the path that I am on today, and able to work with these youngsters, truly transforming me from the inside out, that I'm able to shine and share what I'm learning with so many different people. See some of you faces that I've been able to kind of see at different conferences and different places where I've had the pleasure to speak. It's just been amazing. And I want to kind of express this and share this with our youngsters so they can see that, and also see themselves doing the same thing.
Yep. Pass the shine, Alfred, pass the shine. I like it. So everyone, we acknowledge that we are speaking in broad swaths when we make any attempt to categorize any human into one checkbox or another. So given those limitations, we're going to ask Leslie Weiser to hold it down for at least one Asian point of view. Now you're on, Leslie.
All right. Hi, everyone. Thanks, Wanda and Cole. And Cole, I probably gave you way too many photos, I'm realizing. But I started farming when I was 42. I am now 44, and my farm is in Sonoma County on Southern Pomo and Coast Miwok land in Sebastopol. And we live on 3 acres, and we're currently cultivating 1.5 acres. And I farm in a way that I call identity farming, where I put my personal heritage first and foremost on my farm. So that basically informs me of what kind of crops I am interested in growing, I am a child of immigrants. My mother came over when she was 24 from Taiwan, and they are originally from mainland China, and they are a World War II affected family on my mother's side. And then my father, he came over when he was 10 from Germany, and my grandmother is Polish Jewish and was a hidden child during the Holocaust, and just spent her time running from place to place and hiding in plain sight in Germany during World War II. So my family is been very affected from both world wars, both on the European side and then also on the Sino-Japanese side, or at least within the mainland Chinese side. So when I was able to finally start the farm 2 years ago, I wanted to really use it as a way to explore kind of my lost identity just as a child of immigrants and also of mixed race. Growing up in the Midwest and being just, I feel like I used to say fully assimilated into white Midwestern culture, but I realized that as I'm uncovering, like as I'm farming and really having the ability through the crops that I'm farming to think about my heritage and my family's history, I don't think that I was fully assimilated. So it has been an interesting journey. So in terms of identity farming, what I mean by that, when I started my farm, I asked my both sides of my family to give me a list of crops that they were interested in having when they first came to this country, that they couldn't readily access for. And so my cousin gave me a list of all of the Chinese crops, and then my Polish German grandmother gave me a list of all the crops that she wanted, and that became my seeding list. And so that's basically what informed my decision in terms of what to seed for my first year. And now we are fully, basically a mixed Asian. Sorry, all of these pictures, there's just so many that's distracting. But right now we're so we are a for-profit farm, and we are focusing mainly on mainly East Asian crops with some Southeast Asian herbs. And really, like, it's my goal with my farm is to build community of Asian Americans and create opportunities with the events and the foods that we're growing on the land for people to gather when we're in non-COVID times. So this picture on the right, that was from our first season. We were doing a CSA appreciation dinner, and that was a farm tour. And so everyone basically got to see, right, that is chrysanthemum or tongho or shungiku in Japanese. On the left, that's my grandmother and my children. They are also of mixed race and mixed heritage, and they're Chinese and Korean. So I grow quite a bit of Korean crops too, just as a way for allowing them some kind of connection to the their Korean heritage. Do you want to go? Okay, I guess I'll go picture by picture.
Leslie, could I ask, could you give us some examples of what those crops are, especially if we know what we might recognize them in English? Some of us might recommend.
Okay, well, I mean, on the top right, you see the white stemmed larger bok choy. So yeah, I mean, that's a very common crop that a lot of farmers that are not of Asian descent grow. And then there's like on the bottom, the eggplant is a Taiwanese variety of long eggplant. And Napa cabbage, I don't do our CSA, we are, it's not a full Asian vegetable CSA. I do do a lot of just the standard crops, just as mainly our bumper crop that I know will produce, like Swiss chard and kale, carrots as well. So, and then in terms of a Korean crop, there's perella or knip, and I like to grow an old cucumber variety, which is used in both Korean and Southern Chinese cuisine. So basically with this farm, I didn't know what any of these Chinese or Korean vegetables were until I started it 2 years ago. And it has been an incredible learning experience for me personally and for my children. I didn't know how to say any of the crops names in Mandarin. And after our first year of growing these crops, we were able to take a trip to Taiwan, and I was able to actually go to the night market, identify the crops and what they were in Mandarin and order them, and people actually understood me. So it was an extremely eye-opening experience. And I feel like farming in this manner and kind of reconnecting to my cultural heritage through the foods that we're farming, or the produce and the herbs that we're farming, is one of the last ways that I can really keep a connection to so much of the language and the culture and the foods that were lost when my parents immigrated here to this country. So, yeah.
It sounds like we've got some themes going on about both the opportunities in immigration, right, and the losses that happen.
Mm-hmm.
Can I please ask a quick question? Can I please ask a quick question?
Sure.
Yes, so Miss Michelle
Okay,
B.
I really need to. So when you said reconnecting, you didn't know about these vegetables, Leslie.
Mm-hmm.
How did you get your soil and everything prepared? I mean, like when I'm thinking about, I'm from, the continent of Africa, it's a whole different situation there for planting. So if I wanted to do a heritage type thing here, just kind of, can you explain a little bit of that?
Yeah, so I mean, the first thing that I did when we moved onto the farm, we cover cropped everything, seeded everything, went to Taiwan, and when we came back, everything had germinated. And it was a huge learning experience because I didn't know how to grow these crops. I didn't even know how to prepare them. And it was easy for me to find the seeds because I get a lot of my seeds from Kitazawa, which is a Japanese family-owned seed company and have been in business for the last 100 years. So that was my main seed source. And they have quite a bit of detail for each variety, and that I followed closely in terms of when I was planting everything. And then I just do a lot of experiments on the farm. Like, I grow a lot of items in the hoop house, so I don't have heated anything, but just like unheated hoop houses. And then I'll also grow the same variety out in the field, and then I'll just kind of take mental note of which did better. And also a lot of the seeds that I'm using have been adapted for this area. I was able to get some seeds from Taiwan, and some of it is able to grow here, but some of it is not adapted to this climate. And now I'm also just trying to save the seed from the crops that do well within my farm. So, and in Sebastopol, it's just a very, I can grow a lot of the Asian greens in the summer, and then I can also grow like very high heat loving crops like bitter melon and tomatoes, obviously. But the long beans, if you look on the top left, you'll see like the purple long beans. Those require quite a bit of heat, and not all areas within at least Sonoma County is able to grow them, but we are able to grow them. I think this was inside of a hoop house, and that was where they were able to produce. So yeah, a lot of it was trial and error, and just really looking at the instructions from Kitazawa, because if you go to some of the the non-Asian seed companies that are selling Asian crops, the seeds, they don't give very specific information, or as specific information as I found within Kitazawa. And then also just using and making connections with other Asian American farmers within California like Kristen Leach with Namu Farm is an amazing
Yes,
resource. And, you know, they're adapting their seeds for drought tolerance and for this climate, you know, heritage seeds from Korea. And that is also being sold through Kitazawa. So, you know, just making connections with other like-minded farmers and asking for their help from their experience growing.
Leslie, real quickly, but I gotta ask, do you see an increasing demand for your Asian crops from the other folks that live in Sebastopol, who I'm gonna venture many, if not most, are not Asian?
Yeah,
Right.
yeah. I mean,
Cross-cultural.
yeah, and I think a lot of our interest from our non-Asian customers, a lot of the people who want to subscribe to our CSA, we only sell through CSA and also to some of the chefs. They like more of our social justice stance, so they just want to support our farm because of that. And then, you know, everyone wants to say like this is decolonizing, you know, agriculture, what we're doing, but these are not really foods that are unique. I mean, they were unique to me, but you know, if you were growing up within, you know, an Asian American household where both your parents are Asian American, I think that you would have a little bit more exposure to these vegetables than I ever did. So yeah, I mean, it's just been a huge, starting the farm has been a huge growing and learning experience for me. And then also creating the community of Asian Americans who are immigrants or children of immigrants, that I have learned just so much. It's been an incredible journey.
Beautiful, beautiful. Thank you for that.
Mhm.
Thank you. So friends, our next speaker is Coleman Rainey. And in working through this panel, we really decided it was important to include all voices in the same frame. And so I want to invite Coleman, thank you again, Leslie, to talk a little bit about his heritage and how he seeks healing ancestrally, personally, and in community through the land. Cole, you there?
I'm here. Yes. Greetings. I was just passing through Leslie's last beautiful photos, and I just want to start by saying how honored I am to be a part of this conversation, and just how grateful I am for all of your voices and for everyone that we have on the call today. I feel so humbled and just grateful to be learning from each of you. I'm gonna try and keep it brief today. But yeah, my name is Cole. I use he, they pronouns. I'm a student at UC Berkeley and a farmer at the Gill Tract and at the Berkeley Student Farm here in unceded Ohlone territory. And I think when I think about healing on the land and through food, as someone who is really a descendant of colonizers, right, and a descendant of settlers, and so I carry a story and a wish for people who come from those lineages to really compost and metabolize and relinquish the power, the capital, the resources, the agency that we have accumulated, and to do this in multicultural coalition. And I want to share a little bit about my story. So from both my mom and my dad's side, I come from lineages who have been settlers on Turtle Island for many, many generations, sometimes going back as many as 10 or 11 generations. I'll keep it short in terms of my family's history here in California. On both sides of my family, there were agriculturalists who came to California to grow and pack citrus. And I think it's really important for white identifying people, for people of European descent, it's really easy for whiteness to be centered in these conversations. And I'm kind of tired of whiteness being so central. And I'm sure most of the people of color in this, Black and Indigenous folks, are kind of tired of talking about whiteness all the time too, right? And so I think what I'm inviting is, let's all dig into our actual past. Let's dig into our actual ancestry. What were those specific violences that your family committed? What were those specific harms that your specific ancestors committed, right? And so for me, I'm doing that work and learning those histories. So for example, in Riverside, California, where my great-grandmother and my great-great-grandmother first moved to start packing these citrus, and my great-great-grandfather, there was an institute called the Sherman Institute, where all kinds of indigenous people were brought and institutionalized in a boarding school, where they lost their languages, where they lost their songs and their ceremonies, right? And so my family was directly involved in those kinds of acts. And so now, and I know it was specifically Hopi women who were living in my parents' home. But now today, I'm in relationship with Hopi people, and I'm actually growing Hopi beans on the student farm, right? And I'm able to be in reciprocity and in healing relationship with those peoples. And so it's not this abstract, oh, I'm a settler, oh, I'm a this. I'm trying actively to decolonize and heal from those specific violences and lineages that I'm a part of, right? And that I've been involved in. And I just had to shout out to my grandma and my grandpa here, and this little baby Cole right here, because they're important too, and they teach me a lot. I also want to tell a story about rosemary, right? And so rosemary is this sacred European plant, right? And you find it kind of in the most unlikely of places, right here in Turtle Island. People plant it as like hedgerows. It gets like mowed down, and I just see this sacred European medicinal plant that was actually used for smudging and in bundles, and for burning in ceremony I'm of Scots-Irish heritage, right? And it was used ceremonially, and it's now like thrust to the borders and used as a hedgerow. And the other day I was actually at the farm with my mom and dad, and we were picking rosemary, and the rosemary was up against the road, and it was just buffeting in the wind, and it just like the cars, and it was just like, wow, this sacred plant from our ancestors has been thrust, like we've forgotten, right? Though, like us of European descent, we've forgotten to honor our sacred plants and our sacred medicines. We've forgotten how to do that. And so reconnecting with rosemary for me has been this really beautiful way of connecting to those foods. And it would be great if, rather than trying to appropriate everyone else's sacred medicines and plants and foods, if we just learned to work with our own, right? And so that's a practice that I'm also learning, right? Is how can we not be trying to plunder, right? Trying to exploit and extract sacred relationship from other cultures, but find it in our own. And so rosemary has been a teacher for me in that, and something that I can smudge and I can burn and I can use culinarily that's from my Scottish ancestors, right? And so I'm grateful for that. And I don't know if there's much more to say. I mean, this is our farm here. This is a Water is Life that I got when I was at Standing Rock. And I give a lot of credit to Grandma Redfeather and for teaching me much of these sacred teachings, and for helping me see how it is that we can be of healing, which is to really, give up this accumulated power and wealth, and give up our need for control, and to turn over stewardship and resources and capital and to let go, and to let go. And it's brought me into deep relationship with so many people and so many, and I'm really honored to work here in Huichin in occupied Ohlone territory with so many beautiful people from so many walks of life. And we are farming the land in community, right? And that has really been the most deeply healing thing for me, to learn how to work the land in community, with Black, Indigenous, Brown, people of all walks of life, and really getting out of the way, So I try not to talk too much, because I think that it's best if we let, and that's why this panel is so beautiful, right? We get to hear from each other. And so I'm really honored, and you know, and also working with young people. It's been a great honor of my last few years to work with young people and to bring thousands of pounds of food into the community with these young people and show them, yes, like we can feed each other. And especially for white European descendant folks, like I really want to encourage you to look into those violences and those specific traumas and harms that your family committed, but then also know that you can be a voice for change and for healing in the white community by representing something different than what we're used to seeing. And I'm humbled and grateful for the teachers that have showed me that way, and grateful to my brother Zion, who's going to speak next, who is one of my great teachers in that work. And I just thank you all for listening to me today. And that's a little bit about my story.
Hey, Cole, quickly, I just want to call your attention to the chat. Darlene Franco writes that she was actually at the Sherman Institute when she was 10 years old. And again, I think this is why this whole panel is a remarkable step forward, because there's an opportunity to have the real-time relationships and conversations that can heal those past deeds, right? And at least take a look at them through the lens of all of us, right? That's I think amazing. She says her mom, sorry, not her. Her mom was at Sherman. Cole has introduced Zion Davidson, and I'm going to say I love Zion because when I first met him, I first seen him on Facebook, and then the first time I saw him, I observed him cooking for a large event for 400 people. And he's a remarkable chef, particularly raw foods. And I looked at him and I said, that's my brother. And he doesn't necessarily look like my brother, but I knew in my bones that that was my brother in that ethnic way. There he is with he, and I'm not going to guess who that is. I think it might be his grandfather. But Zion, are you there? Zion walks a wonderful balance of holding true and embracing what is African American, but also what is white, and how to hold that center space for all of us. Zion, you ready?
Peace, y'all. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
All right. Well, I know one thing actually that my ancestors are telling me is that if you're able to do it, maybe just like some really nice deep breaths and maybe some like shaking the body around. My ancestors been telling me that we're doing way too much disembodied Zoom crap all day, and we need to breathe. We need to.
Angelina, and that she was his soulmate.
Can you turn that?
We need to shake. I feel like after these stories, I would just love to hear. I could sit for hours and listen to the stories of every person who's shared so far. Thank you so much, Josefina. Thank you so much, Alfred. Thank you, obviously, Wanda. Thank you, Leslie. Thank you, Cole. Thank you so much for sharing, for bringing your people's stories. And for the beautiful work that you're all doing. Cole, let me see what photos you got so I can know, so I can tell some stories. Okay, you got the pie, you got the thing. What else you got in here? Let's start here. Go back one more. Go back to one more. So these are my people. These are some of my people, at least. In the middle are my parents. That's my mom, Monica, my dad, David. On the far left is my dad's father, my grandfather. On the far right is my dad's mother, my grandmother, Judy. And yeah, I mean, some of my earliest memories and experiences of being a human being have been being yeah, just like in this body that presents to the world as white often, and benefits from the various levels of privilege that whiteness affords in this current economic reality, and having just Black family, Black father, Black grandfather, and have always kind of been in this this sort of like bridge builder role between so many different realms, so many different communities, so many different so many different people from different walks of life, different classes, things along these lines. I feel like what I want to share today is twofold. I want to talk about race is definitely, but also I want to talk about class. A lot of beautiful themes have already been come up, and sort of given the audience that I'm sort of sensing here, I feel like there's a beautiful like body of literacy and knowledge around just the history of enslavement and stolen labor, and how those forces, those economic forces, are obviously still very much alive right now. How the system of mass incarceration is in full effect. We're always in relationship to these systems of oppression, and it's always been something for me that I've known since I was a little person, that sort of like, well, what does it mean to be in relationship to these systems of oppression, and how can we be of service to dismantling them? I'm loving this sort of the language that's coming more and more in the community, in the collective hive mind, around composting these systems and letting them decompose, so that new things can grow. I'm just really vibing with that approach. And yeah, I think that the story that I would love to tell is that from my dad's side, at least, there has always been this sort of like looking down upon farmers. It's a very common trauma from folks who are coming from African American ancestry, that the fields were the site of the the site of the crime, and so to succeed in life is to leave the fields. So my grandfather grew up in Georgia, in the Jim Crow South, and his parents were sharecroppers. His grandfather was a sharecropper. His mother was a maid for the sort of the elite, the gentry in Georgia. That's how she raised eight children, was by being a maid for the wealthy in Georgia. And when he moved to the North and he met my grandmother, at this amazing multiracial, socialist, politically radical, beautiful summer camp. It was actually the first summer camp in the country that had an interracial swimming pool, because swimming pools were highly sexualized spaces, or that was the idea. And so there was no interracial people allowed. There was no interracial mingling allowed at swimming pools for most of American history. But they met at this pool. They fell in love. They had my dad, and they sort of raised my dad with this ethic of like, he needed to like be somebody, like he needed to make it, and he needed to join the capitalist class. He needed to sort of become more financially comfortable than they were. They were both working class people, and so he joined the capitalist class. He became a doctor, and he's a cardiologist, and amazing human and in service to people, and also very, very confused as to why I wanted to become a farmer, or at least a bunch of years back. He was like, "Are you kidding me? You want to become a farmer? Like, what is that?" So, it's been a very interesting journey of feeling this deep spiritual call to the land, and my spiritual practice has brought me to the dirt and to the microbes and to the worms and to the food that grows from the effort that one puts into it, and nourishes oneself and one's family with, and that's been my spiritual path. But I have done a fair amount of really deep listening to my father, and to just the trauma that lives in the body around why do this. Interestingly, since COVID, especially, there's been a lot more understanding. It was when COVID first hit and the shelves didn't have food at the supermarket. It was the first time where the conversation started to shift a little bit, and it was kind of like, oh yeah, like I'm glad you're out there growing food. That's really good. But yeah, it's an ongoing journey, and one of my goals for sure is to be someone who can support, that the healing of that trauma, and the blessedness of having dirt under the fingernails. This is my compost under my nails right now. So I'm here for that. So that's my dad's side. On my mom's side, her folks come from Germany. So these are my grandparents on my mom's side on the right. That's my grandmother Margaret, my grandfather Raymond, and they've come from Germany, and they were a part of the Lutheran Church. So they didn't have money themselves, but they were very religious and were connected to the whole Lutheran lineage. And the more I look into it, the more interestingly, a few of them actually were very involved in the desegregation of the Lutheran Church and some of just a lot of civil rights stuff in the Midwest. But nonetheless, I carry the absolute lineage of people who benefited from assimilating into whiteness, and perpetuating the reality of colonization on this planet. So both of those lineages, live in my blood and are here to be processed, here to be metabolized, here to be transmuted and worked with. So that sort of leads me a little bit to what I'm currently doing, to what we're currently doing here at this farm that I live at. I live at an incredibly beautiful place. It's called the Refuge, and we're 2 hours east of the Bay Area. And we're a multiracial, cross-class, intergenerational community where we have an organic farm on site. And our goal is to support a just transition toward a livable future for all people, and to really sort of help be a part of creating a model that can help be replicated in other spaces, or that can be shared, that resources or information about what we're doing and how we are creating land access for people can be open sourced and made available to anyone who would like to do this. One piece that I want to sort of highlight, and then I'll close, is that we're obviously grounding into the gratitude for the indigenous peoples of this place. We're the Sierra Miwok people, and we are in a deep and consistent study of what their traditional ecological practices are, and are going to commit to that study and relationship with the Sierra Miwok as well. And obviously the land regeneration and the soil health and the improving the land every year and all of these things. But we're also really sort of grounding in the conversation of reparations and wealth redistribution, and we're entering into a very transparent process around how that is going to look. And so one part of our effort is to welcome money into our collective pot that is designed to create equal ownership or equal stewardship of the space, so yeah, welcoming the excess from the old system to help compost right on site right here, so that families who didn't receive the benefits of that exploitation or that excess can have intergenerational land access for their families. Interesting, right across the street from us, there's a bunch of land that's for sale that we're in a conversation about purchasing. And just one last little is that they base is I think it's like ag 9.46 or something, and it's for the big agriculture companies basically created that zoning so that they can just like stuff migrant farm workers into these places without gaining any equity or land access into the business. And so since there's so much of this land that's around us that is zoned that way, we are excited to help be a part of a model that can help create a radically different way of relating to the land, welcoming capital into the space to create equity for people who have been displaced, marginalized by the current system. So more that could be said, but for now, I'm just grateful for this time, and I'm grateful for everyone for being here. And that's my sweet potato pie. That's my grandpa's sweet potato pie. Thank you.
That ain't just any old sweet potato pie right there. That's beautiful. And thank you for calling in, all of you, your ancestors into this. Something we should have done in the very beginning, but it's certainly, it is evident to me that they are here with us and through us. So what we'd like to do is transition this conversation quickly to save as much time as we can, to go into breakout and affinity groups. And again, we've acknowledged the diaspora in all of these groups, but our panelists are going to lead the affinity groups. If there's someone of you that would like to create a very specific affinity group, you are also welcome to do that. We're leaving space. But for now, Josefina will be holding it down in the Latinx break room. Leslie Weiser will be holding it down in the Asian affinity group. Alfred Melbourne will be managing the room for Native Americans and Indigenous folks. Coleman Rainey will hold it down for folks talking about whiteness or Gaelic culture in particular. And Zion is going to hold space in a multicultural, multi-ethnic magic cauldron. You have the opportunity. Let me just ask right now, is there anybody out there that would like some other group and is willing to facilitate that conversation of you who are attending? We're waiting. Yes, we can. If there's somebody among you that perhaps wants to talk about being a Hawaiian Islander in particular, you're welcome to do that. We also encourage you, when your groups get started, to call in your ancestors when you get in that breakout room. Write the name of your mama, your daddy, your grandparents, your forebears, right? So that we have all of them to encourage this. When we come back from the great breakout groups, we'll share what we've learned. But here's your charge for being in those groups. And it's not hard. We want this to be more like a conversation among family, right, than any kind of big task-oriented deal. So the first thing is just talk about culturally relevant crops, right? I can't believe we've been talking about Black folks on land and we haven't said the word collard greens today, right? But talk about what those crops are, right? Much like Leslie. Then we'd like you to just share, hold on, I'm scrolling, what you love about your culture and the way in which it's connected to the land, right? And then also challenges therein, right? The example that I used in prepping for this is I work in school gardens. And when I'm dealing with young Black kids, they will often talk about, I don't want to look like a slave, right? And I can't get my sneakers dirty and all those kinds of things. if we talk about what we love and what the challenge is and the specific crop we love, and then come back and share it with one another, we've laid an easy foundation for conversations across race and culture. Yay? I see, I saw something about a Black group. We've got Indigenous and Native with Alfred. Okay, so you now have that opportunity to self-select, and we'll see you in the breakout room, and you've got, about 20 minutes, I'd say.
How do we select a group? I don't see any listing.
It
So-
should be,
So
Go
you'll
ahead.
go down to the bottom and you'll see more. You should see a hover and you say more, and you can click breakout rooms. And then when you select breakout rooms, you'll be able to choose from the different rooms that we have, the different affinity groups.
What if you don't
Yeah.
have breakout room down there? I don't see it on my computer, breakout rooms.
I don't either.
Usually the host presents that.
Well, do you see like a little ellipses that says more?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, that's where I am. It says participants chat, show subtitles, view full transcript, subtitle setting, records on this computer, but it doesn't say anything about breakout.
Beatrice, I can, for folks that don't see that option, are all of you?
Well, that's also not an option on my screen as well.
Yeah, it's not for me either.
I think it has to do with the updated version of Zoom.
Oh dear.
Oh, I'm on my phone. I can leave and come back. Because my phone isn't updated, but my laptop is.
So that's, we need to update our Zoom, is that correct?
I just updated mine and it still doesn't have it. So I don't know.
How do you update?
So really quickly, as someone who has hosted event before, I'm pretty sure that the host is the one who's capable and responsible of sorting us into rooms. I've never seen that happen otherwise. If I'm wrong, my apologies, but I think that's what's happening.
Yeah, that's how I've seen it too. The host always does that.
Just a moment, y'all. So Natalie Munoz is our host. And so what we can do, there is actually an option where you can self-select, but clearly, depending on where your Zoom account is updated, that might not be possible. So one thing to help Natalie ensure you get into the right room is to rename yourself. So at the in the upper right corner of your box or in your participant list, you can actually rename yourself. At the beginning of your name, put the name of the breakout room, the affinity group that you want to be part of. That will help Natalie sort, and we'll get through this. Sorry for this technical little glitch, but we'll make sure y'all are in the right rooms. Natalie, is that something you're able to do once people rename themselves?
Yes, it is. So sorry for this little technical difficulty. The way that I'd set this up was that people, yes, could self-select, but it does seem like it's a little bit of a struggle, so that's okay. I think I might have accident. Okay, so let me go ahead and take a look at all of the folks in here.
So while Natalie is doing that, anybody have questions about how to rename themselves? Are folks able to do that?
You click on to like I want to be in the African American diaspora.
Okay, I can actually help you directly,
African
Beatrice.
diaspora.
Okay.
African diaspora.
Okay.
Because some of us as Black people, we've come from two diaspora. I'm of Jamaican diaspora and Gullah.
Wow. Yeah. All right. I renamed you, Beatrice. So hopefully, so you will get put into that affinity group soon. Thank you. Anybody else need?
What is Zion's group called? That's the one I want to be in.
He is in the multi-ethnic rainbow. You want that one? All right. I will.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you.
And thanks for your patience, everybody.
Cole, am I in a room right now since I see you and I was trying to join your room?
And I'm gonna join you in a second. I'm just helping sort people out, but I will add you there right now.
Okay, because I don't see I changed computers, I still don't see the rooms.
Okay.
It'll just take one more second.
Cole, why don't you go ahead and join your room? I'm sure they're waiting for you.
Okay, cool.
So I'll help you, Anne. So do you want to be in Cole's group?
Yeah.
Okay. Why?
Thank you.
How do we move to the group? I see my name has changed, but don't seem to be anywhere else.
Well, Natalie is working through. She has to kind of do it individually. So so apologies for the delay.
I'll be patient.
All right. Thank y'all.
Hi, Julio. Oh, okay, bye.
Yeah, bye.
Is there anybody else that needs help renaming if you want to be put into one of the affinity group rooms?
Maybe not even renaming. If you want to just call out which
Sure.
you would like to go into, because I know that it might take a little while to rename if you'd rather not have to go through that. So you're more than welcome to also shout out.
Go ahead, Little Dove. Do you want to?
Rob, which group would? Actually, you know what? I can call out. Rob, which
You
group?
can just you can put me in white or multi-ethnic either.
Okay, cool. And Niraja, where would you like to be added?
I think there's someone who's just renamed themselves to white group, so they can be sent to white European.
Well, Little Dove, if you'd like, I can add you to multicultural.
Okay, that'd be great. Thank you.
Yeah. And then Michelle would like to be added there. And then Reynaldo, which group would you like to be added to?
Well, actually, whatever you want, because my English is very slow, and I prefer to hear.
No problem.
But I'm fine when you want to.
Okay, I'm gonna put you then in the multicultural room, if that's all right.
Okay. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. And then Gus, where would you like me to add you? Or, you know, anybody in this room that's still unassigned, please call out, where you'd like me to add you.
There's still the person that renamed themselves White Group.
I know, but I can't see them on my list.
Huh.
Let's see, let me close this. I don't know why. White Group. Fortunately, wait.
Yeah, they're chatting. I don't know.
I know, but I don't see them in my breakout group.
Or not assigned.
Okay. Okay, so whoever has been, if you renamed yourself as White Group, then I believe you should. Okay. All right, there they went.
They went. Okay.
And then, yes, for folks still on the line, there was a bit of a snafu with our tech, and so no worries, Perla. If you'd like to call out which group you would like to be assigned to, we have different affinity groups to be able to discuss topics pertaining to these racial and ethnic groups. So we have our Black and African diaspora, Latinx, Indigenous. Okay, great. Perla, I'm going to add you to Latinx then. And then Niraja, where would you like me to add you? Or Grace, which group would you like me to add you to? We have
Hi.
Hi.
Wait. Jordan. Hey, we would love, we're with the youth right now. We would love to be in the Black group because we're mostly Black in here.
Great. Okay, let me go ahead and get you set up.
Thank you so much. Sorry, our computer is cutting off, which is why.
Oh,
that's
I'm so sorry to hear that. That's all good.
Okay, it's just that bad day of technology, it seems.
Oh, I hear you. Same over here. All right, room is open for you. And then folks that are still on the call, if you'd like me to add you anywhere, please let me know.